Hello, I'm Dr. Heather Hartman, a member of the Oak Ridge Schools Board of Education. Welcome to Focus on Education. Today we have our Oak Ridge High School librarian, Hartman-Milloway, and an instructional technology coach, Brian Jones. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Today we're talking about artificial intelligence, or AI. And AI is rapidly transforming various sectors, including education. It offers innovative tools and methodologies that can enhance teaching and learning experiences. Over the last year or so, Oak Ridge Schools has introduced AI into the classroom. And we're going to talk today about how Oak Ridge Schools is leveraging AI to improve student outcomes, support teachers, and address the challenges associated with implementing advanced technologies in a school setting. So, I used AI to generate some questions for our guests today, which we then discussed and reviewed. So, what motivated Oak Ridge Schools to integrate AI into the curriculum?
Yeah, that's a great question. We feel like AI is ubiquitous now, like it's everywhere. It's been around for a while with, Netflix and Amazon and all the recommendations and how they're, tracking data to help better serve you in those things. But ever since ChatGPT kind of released and went public a couple Novembers ago, it feels like it's here in the consciousness and it's in front of everybody. And so we feel like it's important to prepare students for that kind of digital future and the tools that are out there now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's great potential with AI for doing incredibly good work, but there's also great potential for harm. And so we want to harness the good part and then teach our students how to avoid the not so great part.
Right, tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what AI is Oak Ridge High School currently using?
So we kind of went through a process a year ago where we developed an AI committee of principals and our innovation coaches, some classroom teachers, to figure out, okay, what should a policy look like? How are we going to decide what AI to bring into the classroom? And so we'd meet monthly and kind of talk, but then over the summer, the state board put out some kind of guidelines that gave us some kind of clear direction of, okay, we need to have an approved list. We need to have a process for looking at a particular AI and deciding, yes, this one's safe and good to bring into a classroom. And so we've kind of been working through that process of, as we are finding tools, we'll take it to that committee and our IT team and make sure that it's vetted and safe. It's going to be using our data in the right ways, and also that it's going to support teaching and learning in the ways that we want it to.
Mm-hmm. So to be clear, Magic School AI is the only AI that's approved for use within the building in the classrooms. Mm-hmm. But teachers can use whatever they like. Magic School has great tools for education. It was developed for that purpose, but teachers can use anything that's available to the public. And students who are not on our Wi-Fi can use whatever they like outside of the building.
Mm-hmm. There's lots of AI that's embedded into programs that we normally use, like, Microsoft Word has the grammar check and the spell check, and those are AIs working there. And so those things that have been kind of grandfathered in because they're just a feature of what we're doing rather than like a general use AI. But Magic School's kind of a newer company that is built by teachers and specifically for teachers. It's not a general knowledge kind of thing like a ChatGPT or a Gemini or a Claude, but it's specific engines built for specific tasks for teaching and learning.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So what's an example of how teachers are using AI in the classroom?
So I've worked with teachers across lots of different departments. They're doing some really interesting things. Chatbots are popular because you can ask AI to be whomever you want them to be. So for example, we used chatbots to introduce novels in an English classroom, and the chatbot took on the character of Jay Gatsby in one case and of other characters, and the students interacted with them and asked, who are you, where do you live, what is it like where you live? So they got a sense of whether or not they might like to spend more time with that book. Another example is a science teacher teaching in a 9th grade science class had students interact with the chatbot as Charles Darwin.
Oh, nice.
And explore how he developed his Origin of the Species and how that, the work that he did. Another use that I thought was interesting, again with a chatbot, was a teacher who had students interact before their first test with regard to study skills. So the chatbot asked them, how do you normally prepare for a test? And the student told them, and then a discussion ensued about how strong that method was, what were other methods to prepare for a test. And the teacher said that in all these cases, but in this case in particular, that students were really engaged, and she felt that they got that message almost more clearly from this cool, interesting way. And they figured out that just rereading my notes is not a good way to study.
Right.
So chatbots are one thing. Teachers are also using it to give feedback to students who get answers wrong on quizzes. And they're also using it, those are all kind of student-facing ways. Then there are ways that teachers use it to enrich their pedagogy or enrich their lesson planning.
Yeah,
I can imagine it would be great for that.
Yeah, they're making presentations, or hey, I know I'm going to be out tomorrow, so I'm going to find a YouTube video on the topic that I'm teaching and have AI generate some questions for that YouTube video, so students get a little bit more interactive with it. Or another cool way is, we know we're going to be reading this particular article or text in class. There's some tools out there that can make it a little bit easier to read for some students that need a little support in that way, or break it down into chunks, or scaffold down the reading level a little bit. We've even had teachers exploring it as a part of professional development, is like a chat bot for, hey, help me clarify some goals that I have that I want to engage students better with more activities. What are some ideas that AI can give me on ways I can design my lessons to be more interactive or more discussion oriented, or whatever it may be.
That sounds like a huge help.
Yeah. Another thing I thought was pretty interesting, a science teacher does a unit called Barbie Bungee Jump.
Okay.
And so, believe it or not, there was not an anchor text available that correlated Barbies and bungees to scientific principles. So she asked AI to do that. So that, the Magic School was able to generate this, anchor text that they could use to then learn about how math and science relates to bungee jumping. So
smart.
yeah, lots of
Love
interesting
fun things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in a moment. And we're back with Hartman-Milloway and Brian Jones talking about artificial intelligence, also known as AI, all in the news these days. We've talked a little bit about some positive things about AI, so let's talk about possibly some sort of negative things. What measures are in place around like ethical concerns with using AI?
Yeah, so the first part is with that committee work that we did last year, the things that we are approving for students and teachers to use here, we've checked to make sure it's FERPA and COPA compliant, and we're making sure that we are not opening up platforms for students where data is going to be collected and sold somewhere. Like students are not getting to ChatGPT on their school computers.
Yeah, so I know FERPA is about privacy for student information. What is COPA?
It's keeping that data safe. It's what are the safeguards around it and where is it going?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's good.
Good question.
So there's like that side of the student data privacy and making sure that what's unblocked for students is going to be safe for them to use. But then there's that other kind of ethical use side of, are we using it to just plagiarize and get answers to things? And so that's something that I think we're navigating as teachers are training students of, hey, for this particular assignment, you can use AI in this way to help you, but kind of the default stance is no AI unless a teacher says, hey, you can use it and here's what you can use it for.
Yeah, and so if AI is used when it's not supposed to be, copy and paste kind of thing, it's treated just like plagiarism. But there are lots of great ways that students can use it to help them generate ideas or to give them an outline perhaps of something they have to do that can be really helpful for them. As Brian mentioned, we've been using AI for grammar check and spell check. I mean, that's something we all sort of accept.
Forever.
We don't consider that cheating when students use Microsoft Word and correct a spelling error.
Right.
And so I think we need to kind of get to that same place, that there are certain ways we can use AI that enhance our learning, that help us make better connections, help us to be more involved in our work. And then there's copy and paste, which is nobody's idea of learning.
And we do have AI detection software. It works better in some instances than maybe some others. But I think also the way we're kind of limiting the AI programs is these ones that we are using for educational use are built in such a way where even if you ask it the answer, it's not going to just tell you an answer. It is trained to respond in the way a teacher would. Is if you ask the teacher a question, well, the teacher might ask you a question right back. And so things like Magic School, or another one we're looking at from Khan Academy called Conmigo, kind of does that same way of it's meant to respond like a teacher might to those questions.
That's really good.
And I think that's one of the reasons it's so important to have AI in the classroom, is so that teachers can help students understand that, for one thing, if you copy and paste, it doesn't sound like you. It's really obvious.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
How do you know they used AI?
I mean, it's so very obvious. And so there are ways to use it that are helpful and ways that you're just going to get caught for plagiarism. So let's not do that. And also students need to understand that you can't trust AI completely. It's not, if you ask it a question, it may or may not give you the right answer. It may give you a partial right answer. And so without knowing that, students could use the information and think, oh, well, I read it on the internet, it must be true. And absolutely that's not true. So information literacy is so important, and it's very important with AI.
Well, and the way that it works, doesn't it sort of crawl the web and pull in everything that might be related to whatever that is that you're talking about? And it might be two pieces of information that don't really go together. And so then it's just awkward.
Yeah, awkward. It can be awkward. It can be completely false. Anywhere in between there. Which again is another benefit of Magic School, because it doesn't crawl the whole wide world. It crawls a certain subset, a database that it has selected. That for our use, or not our use, but for school's use.
Right, more appropriate
subjects
than websites.
But Magic School is very, emphasizes all the time that even with what they output, you have to absolutely check it for hallucination and for accuracy and all of that. You can never just completely trust it.
Right. So is using AI safe?
We think what we have allowed for students to use and how we're exploring it is as controlled an environment as you're going to get. So we feel like it is safe in the way that students are allowed to explore it here at school for those particular assignments and for particular tasks. It's safe in here. Now they still, when they go home or whatever on their phones, they can still access all of those other things. But at least the way that we are kind of going slow to go fast later with the policies and what's unblocked and available for students, we feel like it's as safe as we can make it here.
And I'm hopeful that by teaching them to use Magic School and making them aware of the potential hazards, we will help them to be their own sensors, even on their phones or on home computers or any other place.
Well, and with something like Magic School, one of its advantages is teachers can see the entire dialogue that a student has with it. And it's got software in it that kind of flags if there's any language that is used or any kind of violence or anything like that. It's able to flag that easily for a teacher to then review, who they can step into that situation and have a conversation with a student and go through that kind of teachable moment there.
Right. I see where you did this. You might do this instead, next time. Yeah. So along those lines, how are we training teachers and how are we training students to use AI?
Yeah, it's been kind of a fun process for teacher. We've been doing these things we just call sandboxes, where we'll say, hey, so we're going to all explore ChatGPT together, and we'll kind of have a few core questions, up and available, but it's just a bunch of teachers in a room, like all trying out ChatGPT or Magic School in particular ways, and then sharing out, hey, what did you find, or what worked well, or how might you use this in a classroom? And so so those kinds of sandboxes have been a good way for teachers who were maybe a little hesitant to try AI or have some initial strong feelings of, no, I don't want that. That's going to replace the thinking in my room, to at least see what it does and how it works and have that experience before they bring it into their classrooms. And then we've also had, Magic School is offering some professional development to us to give some very targeted, here's some ways that we're seeing other schools use it around the country, so you might consider it, using it for this. And those are kind of two big ways that we've at least been training teachers to use it.
And teachers are just in a very limited way working with students at this point. We're really at the very dawn of it. I think teachers need to understand a little bit more before they feel comfortable using it across the board or to any large extent. But our students are already using it. Right. So we're kind of playing catch up. And so
but it is a skill that you have to sort of build.
And it is
how good a prompt you do, determines the quality of what you get back.
Absolutely. And we've done a lot of work with teachers in that regard, and Magic School does a lot of training too about how to write a good prompt. The thing that I really like about any of these AIs that we're talking about is you can have a conversation with it. Unlike Google, where you search for something and you may or may not get what you want, if you search for something in AI and you don't get what you want, you can tell it, no, that's not exactly what I wanted. I need it to look like this, or I really meant such and such, and it'll adjust in a way that Google won't. And so what I've seen with teachers is it sometimes takes several iterations because they're not very good at their prompt right at the first time.
Right.
But you can be very, very specific. I want this AI to be Jay Gatsby. I want him to talk about his character. I want him to talk about where he's from. I don't want him to reveal evidence of the plot. I don't want him to do this. I don't want him to do that. And then the more specific you can be, the better it is.
And Magic School is nice in that way because one of its cool features is like a prompt assistant. So as you write out your initial prompt, it'll give you some suggestions on ways to optimize that prompt. And it's very conversational. And so those suggestions sometimes kind of help teachers write better and better prompts. But we also feel like the more experienced teachers get using the AIs, the more comfortable they're going to get bringing that to their students to kind of teach them to use it responsibly. And also in the most effective way, like you said, of the better inputs I can give it, then the better outputs I'm going to get from it.
Right. So for today, I think I wrote, write 20 questions regarding the use of artificial intelligence in K-12 education in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And so,
that's great, really nice and specific.
Yeah. But some of the questions I got were not good. And so you just have to cull through and make sure that it gives you what you want. And if it doesn't, you have to go again and get closer.
Exactly.
Yeah, and one thing we like about it is, or we're learning about it, is unlike the Google search, like Karamia was saying, where it's all based on keywords, you can really just tell it exactly what you want it to do of, hey, I want 20 questions, but I want the first one to have to do with why are you using it? I want it to have 5 questions about safety. So you don't need any kind of special training necessarily to understand how to do it. Just tell it exactly what you want, and if it gets it wrong, correct it. And,
right.
Yeah.
We use it at work sometimes to make something that's really verbose more concise. That's probably a good example from work.
Yeah.
So what are future plans for AI in Oak Ridge schools?
So I think kind of the long-term goal that we have for AI is that we can help teachers minimize those administrative and routine tasks that can eat up a lot of their time of, newsletters or emails or those rote kind of tasks, but we want to maximize the teaching and learning time. So it's finding the best tools that are out there and the best ways to use those tools for our in-class activities that are going to support the teaching and learning is kind of that end point of where we're trying to get.
And I would say too, I don't think one thing we haven't talked about is that AI can really personalize learning for students with tutoring and feedback that meets them exactly where they are at exactly that moment. And so where there maybe are 25 students in a room and one teacher, AI can give the students some feedback and prompt with some tutoring as the teacher is working around the classroom. And I think that is really powerful and somewhere where we need to be looking to go. Again, maximizing the teacher's ability to give individual feedback to students and to work one-on-one with them.
In my limited use of it at work, I feel like it's a huge time saver. To summarize something, to find the salient points, to help you get an idea started, to help you get a plan, sort of sketched out. But again, you have to be careful. You have to review what you have and make sure it's appropriate. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense until you refine it some. So,
absolutely.
Well, it's exciting.
Yeah,
and I'm glad that Oak Ridge Schools is jumping in. I think if you don't help students learn how to use AI, that they will be at a disadvantage in the future.
Absolutely.
And so, very good.
Yeah.
Are they using? They're not using Magic School at elementary yet, are they?
Teachers are using it some for some of their planning, but none of the student-facing tools yet.
So I thought that might be something we should make clear too. It's just at the high school and the middle school. I think students have access to it.
Middle school students have access. Yeah.
But another thing to maybe make clear is that students only have access to tools that teachers give them access to. So just because we're using Magic School doesn't mean that all 1,600 of our students are using Magic School. They can only use it in teacher-developed classrooms.
Gotcha.
With the specific tools that teachers pull into that classroom.
That's good to know.
But it's a fun time with so many tools that are out there and getting teachers to experiment with it and then share out what they're doing. It's like we're all kind of teachers and students learning it together and kind of figuring it out. So it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I know when you first hear about artificial intelligence, you probably just are terrified and think they're going to take over and all of that, but it is a great tool as long as we remember that it is a tool.
It is a tool. Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right.